Ever felt the sharp sting of betrayal slicing through your heart? I lived it. My world, once filled with love and trust, crumbled when the person I cherished most chose deception. Why, Luna? I remember asking, the pain evident in my voice. It's not what you think, she lied, her eyes dodging mine, while whispers of her infidelity echoed. Yes, so much better, she moaned to another. The truth, cruel and unyielding, shattered our illusion of love, leaving me to navigate a path littered with deceit. This is my journey through heartbreak and revelation. Enjoy watching it. You made me look dumb. Those bad dreams gotta stop. Hey, lady, you're sad because you've got nobody else to use. I pressed the button on the radio to change it to some late-night show talking about Bigfoot or UFOs. I was sick of hearing that same song over and over in the last few hours. Why, you might ask? Easy. It reminded me too much of the woman I left. Wait, I didn't just walk away, I ran. Let's start at the beginning. My name's Henry Shipman. For the past 5 years, I was married to Luna, who used to be Luna Dalton. We were a thing in high school, and I thought we'd be together forever. We got married straight after high school. Yeah, a bad move, I know, but we were so in love, or so we thought. Boy, was I wrong. Money wasn't a problem. I'm a welder. I've been doing it since I was a kid. My dad was a welder, taught me all I needed. I've been joining metal since I was big enough to safely use a welder. I always wanted to help my dad at work, but couldn't. Rules and insurance said no. But my dad made stuff at home, and he always had something for me to do. It was a good way to learn, and I liked it. After high school, I went to welding school, but got bored because I knew everything they taught. So I tested out and impressed everyone. I got my certificate and started working right away because I had a lot of experience. I could do lots of things, plus welding. I got paid well, especially when I had to go out of state for big jobs. I even did welding underwater and made a bunch of money. I made enough to pay for Luna's college, and now she's a paralegal at a fancy law firm. So why am I running? And why am I on the freeway late at night? It's because of the person I married and her mean friend. Yeah, Luna was all sweet and nice when we were young, but things change, and they did. Don't get me wrong, I love her, and I was happy to pay for her college. Her folks thought I'd be broke doing it. They didn't think I could. Big time. They were just as proud of me as they were of her the day she got her diploma. Even better, she got through school owing no money, thanks to me. What things? When did things go bad? After she got a job at the law firm, McMaster and Fredericks. The first months were fine, but then things got bad bit by bit. Some of the women she worked with weren't good for her. Luna started going out with them for girls' night once a week, usually on Wednesdays. At first, I didn't mind, since she got back early enough for us to have some time together, and I was often out working hard. But then she started staying out later and later, coming home smelling like a bar. She'd be giggling, talking about her new friends, and I noticed she was different, more dehenried, less interested in our life together. Then came the whispers. People saw her out with a man who wasn't me. At first I dismissed it, thinking they were just trying to stir up trouble. But as the rumors persisted, I confronted her. Luna, is there something you're not telling me? Her eyes darted away, and she muttered something about it being harmless fun. But the gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. One night, she came home later than usual, her lipstick smeared, and the smell of another man's cologne on her clothes. That's when I knew. Who is he, Luna? She tried to laugh it off, but the look in her eyes told me everything. I felt a rage I had never known before. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, was a lie. I couldn't stay. I packed my bags, got into my truck, and drove. The radio played that same song over and over, mocking me. I drove until I didn't know where I was, until the anger turned to sorrow, and I pulled over on the side of the road, the reality of my situation hitting me like a ton of bricks. That night, alone on the freeway, I thought about everything that had led me there. My love for Luna, our dreams, and how easily they were shattered. The person I thought I knew had become a stranger, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my broken heart. This is my journey through betrayal and heartbreak. It's a story of pain, of finding out who you really are when the world falls apart. And maybe, just maybe, it's a story of finding hope and rebuilding. Marie Compton, I've been mentoring Luna at the firm. Nice to meet you, Marie. I'm sure you know what it's like to want time with someone you care about, I replied, trying to keep my cool. Of course, she said, leaning in. But Luna needs her space too. She's been under a lot of pressure. I sipped my beer, watching Luna and Jake on the dance floor. He was too close for comfort, and I could see Luna was trying to keep some Henrys, but it was clear she wasn't succeeding much. You know, Marie, marriage is about balance, but lately it feels like all the balance is tipping away from us, I said, not taking my eyes off Luna. Marie didn't respond, just sipped her drink and watched the dance floor. When the song ended, Luna made her way back to the table, looking flustered. Jake followed, a smug grin plastered on his face. Henry, can we talk? Luna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sure, I said, Henrying up. Let's find a quieter spot. We found an empty corner near the back of the bar. Luna looked around nervously before speaking. Henry, what are you doing here? She asked. I think the better question is, what are you doing here, and why does it seem like you're hiding things from me? I countered. Henry, it's not what you think, she started. Then explain it to me, Luna, because from where I'm Henrying, it looks pretty bad, I said, trying to keep my anger in check. Jake is just a friend from work. Yes, we dance and have a good time, but it doesn't mean anything, she explained. Really? Because it sure looks like it means something to him, I said, pointing back to where Jake was now laughing with Marie and the others. Luna sighed, rubbing her temples. I admit, maybe I've let things go too far, but it's just been so stressful. The firm, the pressure. I just needed a break. A break from what, Luna? From us? From me? I asked, feeling my heart ache. No, not from you. Just from everything else. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. Then why didn't you talk to me? Why did you shut me out and turn to them instead? I asked, desperate to under-Henried. I don't know, Henry. I really don't. I just got lost, she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. Luna, I love you. I've always loved you, but I can't keep feeling like I'm competing for your attention. Something has to change. She nodded, wiping away a tear. I know, I promise, I'll make it right. I'll cut back on the nights out and spend more time with you. That's a start, I said, feeling a glimmer of hope. But it's going to take more than just cutting back. We need to rebuild what we've lost. I under-Henried Henry. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she said, reaching for my hand. I squeezed her hand, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. All right, let's go home and figure this out together. As we left the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were still fragile, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same page. It was a small step, but it was a step towards healing. And as we walked out into the night, I hoped it would be enough. Luna grabbed my arm. Henry, please, let's just stay a bit longer. I shook my head, the frustration bubbling over. Luna, I've given you more than enough of my time tonight. It's time to go. Marie interjected. Henry, you're being unreasonable. Let Luna have some fun. I glared at her. Luna's fun shouldn't come at the expense of our marriage. It's time to prioritize us. Luna sighed, clearly torn. Okay, I'll leave with you, she finally said. We walked out of the bar, the cold night air hitting us as we stepped outside. The drive home was silent, tension hanging thickly in the air. When we got home, I turned to Luna. We need to talk, and this time, I need you to be honest with me. Luna nodded, looking resigned. Okay, let's talk. We sat down on the couch, and I took a deep breath. Luna, I need to know if there's something more going on. Are you seeing someone else? Luna shook her head vehemently. No, Henry, I'm not, I swear. Then why do you spend so much time with them, especially with Jake? I asked, the hurt evident in my voice. It's just, he's a good friend. And yes, maybe I enjoy the attention, but it doesn't mean anything. I just needed a break from everything, including us, she admitted. A break from us? I asked, feeling a stab of pain. Not from you specifically, but from the routine. I felt trapped, Henry. I needed to feel free, to be my own person, she explained, tears welling up in her eyes. But Luna, you can't just run away from our problems. We need to face them together, I said, reaching out to hold her hand. She squeezed my hand back. I know. I'm sorry, Henry. I never wanted to hurt you. I believe you, I said softly. But we need to work on this. We need to rebuild our trust and find a way to make this work. She nodded, wiping away her tears. I want that too. I want us to be happy again. We can be, I said, feeling a glimmer of hope. But it's going to take effort from both of us. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she said earnestly. Good, I replied. Because I love you, Luna, and I don't want to lose you. I love you too, Henry, she whispered, leaning in to kiss me. As our lips met, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was determined to fight for our marriage. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same page. The next few weeks were challenging as we worked to rebuild our relationship. Luna cut back on her nights out, and we started spending more quality time together. We went on dates, talked about our feelings, and slowly began to heal. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Luna turned to me. Henry, thank you for not giving up on us. I smiled, pulling her close. Thank you for coming back to me. I think we're stronger now because of this. She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. I think so too. And as we sat there watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. We had been through hell, but we had come out the other side stronger and more in love than ever, and that was something worth fighting for. I accidentally knocked my nearly full ice-cold drink into Jake's lap, drenching the crotch of his khaki trousers. Oops, sorry about that. I guess you'd better go home and change, I said, feigning innocence. Jake jumped up, furious, and looked ready to swing at me. You'd better make it count, pal, or your dick will be in the dirt when you wake up, I warned, my eyes cold and unyielding. He backed down, recognizing the seriousness in my gaze. Smart move, I told him before turning to Luna. Are you coming? I'm right behind you, she whispered, clearly embarrassed. Marie shot me a look that could kill, but I ignored her. I walked out without looking back, hearing Luna pull into the driveway a few minutes after me. Good for her, I thought. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and waited in the living room. Luna stormed in, her face red with anger. What the hell was that about? You made me feel extremely ashamed. Have I embarrassed you? I asked rhetorically. Are you following me or something? She demanded. I shook my head. No, I was genuinely looking to get a beer and was surprised to see you there with your work friends, I said, knowing I had just lied to her for the first time in our relationship. If anyone should be embarrassed, it was me. Imagine what ran through my mind when I saw my wife, the love of my life and my best friend, sitting there with some sex hound, acting like a thrilled schoolgirl. Imagine how I felt when I noticed you had taken off your wedding band. You were embarrassed to disclose that you were married to me. Is this it? Her face softened, and she sat down beside me. Of course not. It's just that I need to work with these guys. Jake is the attorney I work with the most. And what about Marie? I asked. She is higher up on the food chain than I am. She's been coaching me and showing me the ropes. Does this include marriage advice? I inquired. What do you mean? She asked, looking puzzled. Marie was lecturing me about how you should extend your horizons and stretch your wings. I asked if that meant spreading your legs as well, and she almost confessed you did. Be honest with me. Did you cheat on me? No, I have not, she replied, looking down. For some reason, she couldn't meet my eyes. Was she lying to me? I hoped not. Because that is the one thing I can never forgive, I told her. Marie suggested that maybe you think I'm getting some while I'm away. What? Luna asked, shocked. We've known each other since 6th grade. Have you ever seen me be unfaithful to you? Ever? She shook her head. No, she replied softly. I have never cheated on you and never intend to. I love you too much to insult and hurt you in that way. Besides, when I'm away, I'm too busy working. I wasn't kidding when I told Jake that I often work 16 hours a day. I under-Henried. I've seen your pay stubs, I said. I put you through college, bought you that new car out there, kept you dressed nicely all the time, on top of paying our regular bills. You know I've been saving up for a good down payment on a house. Luna looked at me, tears welling up in her eyes. I know, Henry, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. I just got caught up in the excitement of my new job and the new friends I made. I never meant to make you feel neglected or unimportant. I sighed, feeling some of my anger dissipate. We need to work on our communication, Luna. We need to be honest with each other about our feelings and our needs. I don't want to lose you, but I can't keep living like this, continually worrying about what you're doing when you're out with your friends. She nodded, wiping away her tears. You're right. I'll cut back on the nights out, and we'll make more time for each other. I don't want to lose you either, Henry. You're my rock, and I love you more than anything. Let's start fresh, I suggested. Let's rebuild our relationship and focus on what truly matters, us. Luna smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Yes, let's do that. I love you, Henry. I love you too, Luna, I replied, pulling her into a tight embrace. As we sat there, holding each other, I felt a sense of hope. It wouldn't be easy, but I believed we could get through this together and come out stronger on the other side. So delicious, it almost melted in my mouth. This is amazing, I said between bites. You've outdone yourself. I'm glad you like it, she replied, her eyes sparkling in the candlelight. I've been looking forward to tonight. After we finished dinner, Luna stood up and took my hand, leading me to the living room. She had set up a cozy little spot by the fireplace, complete with soft blankets and pillows. We sat down, and she snuggled up next to me, her head resting on my shoulder. I've missed this, she said softly, just being close to you. Me too, I replied, wrapping my arm around her. It's been too long. We sat there for a while, enjoying the warmth of the fire and the comfort of each other's presence. It felt like the old days, before the late nights and the arguments. I realized how much I had missed these simple, intimate moments with my wife. Henry, she began hesitantly, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about us, about our future. I turned to look at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. What is it, Luna? I know things have been rough between us, and I take full responsibility for my part in that. I let myself get caught up in the excitement of my new job and the new friends I made. I lost sight of what really matters. I nodded, listening intently. Go on. I want to make things right, she continued. I want us to be happy again, like we used to be. I want to focus on us, on our marriage, and on building a future together. I've already told Marie and Jake that I won't be going out with them anymore. I don't need that in my life. I need you. Her words touched my heart, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. Luna, I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. I want us to be happy too, and I believe we can get there if we work together. She smiled, a look of relief washing over her face. Thank you, Henry. I love you so much. I love you too, I replied, pulling her close for a kiss. That night, as we lay in each other's arms, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future. We had faced a rough patch, but we were determined to come out stronger on the other side. In the following weeks, Luna made a genuine effort to spend more time with me. We went on dates, cooked meals together, and talked about our dreams and plans for the future. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, and our bond grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Luna turned to me with a smile. Henry, remember when you said you had 3 goals in life? I nodded. Yeah, marry you, become the best welder, and start a family. Well, she said, her eyes twinkling with excitement, I think it's time we start working on that 3rd goal. My heart skipped a beat. You mean? She nodded, tears of joy in her eyes. Yes, Henry, I'm ready to start a family with you. I felt a surge of happiness and pulled her into a tight embrace. I love you, Luna. I can't wait to build our future together. From that moment on, our focus shifted towards building the life we had always dreamed of. We found a beautiful house, and Luna decorated it with her impeccable taste. I continued to excel in my welding career, and we started planning for the arrival of our first child. Life wasn't always perfect, and we faced our fair share of challenges. But through it all, we remained committed to each other and to our marriage. We had learned the importance of communication, trust, and making time for each other. Years later, as I watched our children play in the yard, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey we had been on. The rough patch we had faced had ultimately brought us closer together, and our love had only grown stronger. Henry, Luna called from the porch, holding our youngest in her arms. Dinner's ready. I smiled and headed towards my family, feeling a deep sense of contentment. We had built a beautiful life together, and I knew that no matter what challenges came our way, we would face them together with love and unwavering commitment. The bed, I couldn't believe this was happening. My heart raced with a mix of rage and betrayal. Luna lay down, and Jake wasted no time, climbing on top of her and beginning to undress himself. The other man watched with a sick grin. clearly enjoying my helpless state. Marie came back and stood next to me, whispering in my ear, "See, Henry, it's all about control. Luna needs this, and so do you. Accept it, and you'll learn to enjoy it." My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. How could Luna betray me like this? The woman I loved, the woman I had supported through everything, was now willingly humiliating me in front of these people. Jake began to thrust into Luna, and she moaned loudly, arching her back. The sight made my stomach churn, and I struggled against the bindings, desperate to free myself. But the zip ties were too tight, and the meat cage was unforgiving. Luna's eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw a flicker of guilt and regret. But it quickly disappeared as she closed her eyes and surrendered to the sensation. Jake's grunts filled the room, and I could hear the wet sounds of their coupling. The other man started to undress, preparing to take his turn. Marie placed her hand on my shoulder, a mocking smile on her face. "Don't worry, Henry. This will be over soon, and then you'll under-Henry'd your place. Luna will come back to you, and you'll be a better husband for it." I wanted to scream, to lash out, but the gag muffled my protests. My body trembled with anger and humiliation. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a violation of everything I believed in, everything I held dear. Jake finished with a groan, pulling out of Luna and wiping himself with her discarded dress. The other man stepped forward, ready to take his place. Luna glanced at me again, her expression unreadable. Marie moved to Luna's side, whispering something to her that I couldn't hear. Luna nodded, and the other man climbed onto the bed. I watched in horror as he positioned himself, ready to continue the torment. The room spun, and I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. The betrayal, the humiliation, the helplessness. It was all too much. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the sounds, the sights, the reality of my situation. When I opened my eyes again, the room was dark. I was no longer tied to the chair, and the meat cage was gone. My wrists and ankles ached from where the zip ties had cut into my skin. I struggled to sit up, my mind still reeling from the events that had transpired. Luna was lying next to me, asleep. Her body was covered in sweat, and the sheets were stained. I felt a surge of anger and disgust, not just at her, but at myself for allowing this to happen. I quietly got out of bed, my movements slow and deliberate. I needed to get out of there, away from this nightmare. I grabbed my clothes and slipped out of the bedroom, careful not to wake anyone. As I left the house, the cool night air hit my face, and I felt a sense of freedom. But it was tainted by the knowledge of what had happened. I couldn't go back, not after this. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. How could I rebuild my life after such a betrayal? Could I ever trust again? The answers were unclear. But one thing was certain, I needed to move on. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce. Luna tried to reach out to apologize, but I couldn't face her. The wounds were too fresh, too deep. I focused on my work, on rebuilding my life, one day at a time. And as time passed, I realized that while the pain of betrayal would never fully disappear, I had the strength to move forward. I would find happiness again, on my own terms, and I would never let anyone have that kind of control over me ever again. Restraints, freeing me from the chair. My muscles were sore from the bindings, and my face was wet with a mix of tears and their disgusting act. I could barely move, but the anger burning inside me fueled my actions. "Henry," Luna began, reaching out to touch me. "Please, you have to under-Henried." "Under-Henried," I roared, jerking away from her touch. "What exactly should I under-Henried, Luna? That you betrayed me in the most humiliating way possible? That you let those men treat me like trash while you laughed?" Tears streamed down her cheeks, but I was beyond caring. "I love you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought this would help us, that it would make things better." "Make things better," I spat. "How could this ever make things better? You destroyed us, Luna. You destroyed everything." I stumbled to the bathroom, needing to wash away the filth and shame. The shower's hot water scalded my skin, but it wasn't enough to cleanse the hurt and betrayal. As I stood there, I made a decision. When I emerged, Luna was sitting on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. "Henry, please," she pleaded. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can—" "No, Luna," I cut her off, my voice cold and firm. "There's no fixing this. You crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. I want you out of this house by tomorrow." Her eyes widened in shock and desperation. Henry, no, please don't do this. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but we can work through it. I shook my head. No, Luna, this is beyond a mistake. This was a choice, a deliberate choice to hurt and humiliate me. I can never forgive that. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, but my heart was hardened. I packed a bag and left the house, needing to get away from the scene of my betrayal. I drove aimlessly, the night swallowing my pain as I tried to process everything. Eventually, I found myself parked outside a hotel. I checked in, collapsing onto the bed, but sleep didn't come. My mind replayed the events of the night over and over, a cruel loop of torment. The next morning, I called a lawyer and began the process of divorce. I knew it would be a long, painful road, but there was no turning back. Luna tried to contact me multiple times, but I ignored her calls and messages. I couldn't face her, not after what she had done. Weeks turned into months, and the legal proceedings dragged on. I focused on my work, pouring all my energy into welding, trying to forget the past. The house, once a home, became just a place filled with memories I wanted to erase. One day, as I was working on a project, my phone rang. It was Carly, a friend from my welding circle. "Hey, Henry," she greeted cheerfully. "Just checking in. How are you holding up?" I hesitated, but then the words spilled out. "Not great, Carly. Not great at all." She listened patiently as I recounted everything, offering support and encouragement. "You need to take care of yourself, Henry," she advised. "Don't let this destroy you." Her kindness was a balm to my wounded soul, and over time, we grew closer. She was a beacon of hope, showing me that there was still goodness in the world. Slowly, I began to heal. The divorce was finalized, and I cut all ties with Luna. She tried to reach out one last time, but I told her firmly that it was over. I needed to move on, to rebuild my life without her. With Carly by my side, I found strength I didn't know I had. We started dating, and she brought joy back into my life. She understood my pain and never pushed me beyond what I could handle. Years passed, and the scars from that night faded, though they never disappeared completely. I learned to trust again, to open my heart to the possibility of love. And with Carly, I found a new beginning. The memory of Luna and that fateful night would always be a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had survived the storm and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever the future held. And for that, I was grateful. A light breakfast. They were deeply concerned and wanted to ensure I was safe and sound. "Henry, are you all right?" my mother asked, her voice trembling with worry. "I'm fine, Mom," I reassured her, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "It's been a rough night, but I'm okay." My dad's stern expression softened as he placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're here for you, son, whatever you need." "I appreciate it," I said, genuinely grateful for their support. "But right now, I need to focus on getting through this." The day passed in a blur. The hospital staff were attentive, ensuring I was comfortable, while the police continued their investigation. Linda Calloway, the AICHI Henry District Attorney, visited me again to update me on the case. "Mr. Shipman," she began, "we've gathered sub-Henry evidence from your home. The charges against your wife and her accomplices are solid. However, be prepared for a tough legal battle. They have powerful connections, and they won't go down without a fight." "I under-Henried," I said, nodding, "but I'm ready to see this through." "Good," she replied. "We'll support you every step of the way. Just remember, you're not alone in this." Her words were reassuring, but I knew the road ahead would be challenging. As evening approached, I received a surprise visit from Carly. Her presence was like a breath of fresh air in the suffocating tension of the day. "Hey, Henry," she greeted softly, a concerned look in her eyes. "I heard what happened. I had to come see you." "Carly," I said, feeling a surge of warmth at her concern. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot." She sat beside me, holding my hand. "I'm so sorry you had to go through this. But you're strong, Henry. You'll get through it." We talked for a while, her presence providing a much-needed distraction from the chaos of my life. As the night drew closer, she promised to visit again, leaving me with a sense of hope I hadn't felt in days. The next morning, I was discharged from the hospital. My parents offered to let me stay with them, but I declined, wanting to face my situation head-on. With their support and the assurance of Linda Calloway's protection order, I returned home. The house felt different now, tainted by the horrific events that had transpired. but I refused to let it break me. I contacted a locksmith and had all the locks changed, ensuring Luna and her accomplices could no longer access my home. Days turned into weeks as the legal proceedings began. Linda was a fierce advocate, fighting tirelessly on my behalf. The court hearings were grueling, but I remained steadfast, determined to see justice served. During this time, Carly became my rock. Her unwavering support and underhanding helped me navigate the emotional turmoil. Our bond grew stronger, and I found solace in her company. One evening, after a particularly draining day in court, Carly and I sat on my porch watching the sunset. "Henry," she began, "I've been thinking a lot about us. I know you're going through a tough time, but I want you to know I'm here for you, whatever happens." I turned to her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Carly, you've been amazing. I don't know what I would have done without you." She smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "You don't have to go through this alone, Henry. We'll face it together." In that moment, I realized how much Carly meant to me. She had been a beacon of hope in my darkest hours, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. As the months passed, the case against Luna and her accomplices strengthened. They faced multiple charges, and the evidence was overwhelming. The day of the final hearing arrived, and I stood in court, ready to see justice served. The judge delivered the verdict, guilty on all counts. Luna, Jake, Marie, and the other man were sentenced to significant prison time. The weight of the ordeal began to lift, replaced by a sense of closure. After the trial, I walked out of the courthouse with Carly by my side. The sun was shining, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. "We did it," Carly said, squeezing my hand. "Yeah, we did," I replied, smiling at her. "Thank you for everything, Carly. I couldn't have done it without you." She leaned in and kissed me gently. "This is just the beginning, Henry. There's so much more ahead for us." And she was right. With Carly by my side and the support of my loved ones, I knew I could face whatever the future held. The worst days were behind me, and I was ready to embrace the new chapter of my life. We walked away from the courthouse, hand in hand, ready to start anew. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I had found strength in the face of adversity, and with Carly's love, I was ready to move forward and build a brighter future. My father nodded in agreement. "Good for you, son. Is there something we can do to help?" "I could use the name of a good divorce lawyer," I replied. "I know a few folks. Let me see what I can find for you," he said, "and I can give you a ride home after you're discharged." "Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it," I said. "Just rest and relax for now. Don't do anything rash," he advised. "I know," I said with a small smile. "I promise not to do anything stupid." We all chuckled, and my parents left after my mother gave me a tight hug. Luna's parents arrived shortly after. We had always gotten along well, and they had been like second parents to me. I recounted the events of the previous night to them, and they were both shocked and horrified by their daughter's actions. "I assume you're going to file for divorce," her father remarked. "Yeah, I can't live with what she did," I said. "I completely underhanded, and I'm truly sorry for what she's done," her mother said. "Is there anything we can do to help?" "If Luna is released from jail, she'll need a place to stay. The AICHI district attorney is getting a protection order, so she can't stay in the apartment," I explained. "She can come stay with us," her mother agreed. "Thank you," I said. We said our goodbyes, and they left. A couple of hours later, the doctor came by to check on me. He deemed me fit for discharge, and the nurses began the paperwork. I called my father to let him know I was ready to be picked up. My parents returned just as the paperwork was completed. After the nurse gave me my discharge instructions, she wheeled me to the loading zone where my father's car was parked. They helped me into the car, and we headed home. When we arrived at the apartment, my father walked me to the door. "Remember, if you need anything, just call," he said. "Thanks, Dad," I replied. We said our goodbyes, and I entered the apartment. The police had gone through everything, and I knew it would take time to put things back in order. I immediately noticed a message on the answering machine. I pressed play. "Dead meat" was all the message said. There was no introduction, nothing. The number was marked as private. Something about the message felt familiar, so I listened to it several more times. It hit me. It was a line from one of the old Rocky movies, the one with Mr. T, Whoever sent the message had recorded it and played it back over the phone. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a young, attractive brunette hen-reading outside. I remembered seeing her at the club with Jake. I quickly took my cell phone from my pocket, turned on the camera, set it to record, and put it back in my pocket. Then I opened the door, leaving the chain on. "Yeah," asked. "Mr. Shipman?" she asked softly. "That's me, and you are?" I inquired. "Holly Brinkman. I work with your spouse," she said. "May I come in, please?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Are you by yourself?" I inquired. "Sure I am," she responded. I closed the door just enough to unlatch the chain and then reopened it to let her in. Once she entered, I shut and locked the door behind her. "Miss Brinkman, what can I do for you?" I asked. "Please call me Holly," she said softly. "All right, Holly, so what can I do for you?" I repeated. She handed me a manila envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Please open it," she replied quietly. I opened the folder and peered inside. I noticed a couple of photographs, so I placed the envelope on the coffee table and excused myself to go to the kitchen, where I grabbed a pair of latex gloves. I didn't want to risk getting my fingerprints on anything. I returned and brought out the images, stunned by what I saw. The photographs depicted a gruesome scene of a dead man on his knees, his hands bound behind him. Another photo showed the same man from a different angle. I looked across at Holly. "Who's this?" I asked. "It was my husband," she said, tears streaming down her face. "His name was Brian." "Did you report it?" I questioned her. She nodded. "Yes, the police ruled it a suicide." "How?" I asked, incredulous. "You don't under-Henried. The firm we work for has friends in high and low places. They own a good chunk of the police force, and some judges are on their payroll," she explained. "I see," I said. "Did Jake do this?" She simply shrugged her shoulders. "I honestly don't know. He could have ordered it." "So why are you still working for the firm?" I questioned. "I have no choice," she said, her voice trembling. "Let me guess. You're more than just a legal secretary, right?" I asked. "That's right. They treated us the same way Jake and Marie treated you, except that my husband went after Jake and paid the ultimate price." "So are you really just a hooker for the firm?" I inquired. She nodded. "Yes, my job is to be available to the attorneys and their clients." "What's Marie's role in all of this?" I asked. "She's like the madam. She manages all of our assignments, and she was grooming Luna to join her stable," Holly said. "Was she succeeding?" I asked. "Yes," she answered quietly. I looked inside the envelope again and noticed something else. I pulled out a folded piece of paper and opened it. It was a note with letters cut from magazines and newspapers and pasted onto the paper. "Talk about cheesy." I nearly laughed out loud, but resisted the urge. "Henry Shipman," the note began. "Please back off, or this might be you." I looked across at Holly. "Have you read it?" I questioned. She shook her head. "No, it was dropped off at my apartment this morning with a note to hand-deliver it to this address." "Would you be willing to talk to the district attorney about this?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, if it's all the same to you, I'd prefer to keep living. You don't realize how nasty these people are, especially Marie." "How many people in your company are aware of all this?" I inquired. "Almost everyone above the mid-level executive tier," she claimed. I nodded. "Figures. Okay, Holly, thanks for bringing this to my attention. I'm sorry about everything. You seem like a good person. Luna is lucky to have you." "Thank you for saying that, Holly. Have a good day," I said, opening the door for her. I watched her walk away, making sure no one else was around. Once she was out of sight, I closed and locked the door again. We used to work together on various welding jobs, and he had become a trusted friend over the years. "Henry, is that really you? It's been ages," he exclaimed. "Yeah, it's me. Listen, I need a place to lay low for a bit. Can you help me out?" I asked. "Of course, buddy. You know you're always welcome here. What's going on?" Dave inquired, concern evident in his voice. "I'll explain everything when I get there. It's a long story, and I need to get out of town for a while," I said. "All right, no problem. Just head over to my place. You remember where it is, right?" Dave asked. "Yeah, I remember. Thanks, Dave. I'll be there in a few hours," I replied, feeling a sense of relief. "No worries, man. Drive safe," he said before hanging up. With a destination in mind, I felt a bit more at ease. I continued driving, keeping an eye out for any signs of trouble. The night was dark, and the roads were mostly empty, which was a small comfort. I couldn't shake the images of the dead man from my mind. The threats, the betrayal, everything weighed heavily on me. As I drove, my thoughts drifted back to the life I had with Luna. How had things gone so wrong? We were happy once, or so I thought. But now, everything was different. The woman I loved had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and her so-called friends were dangerous and ruthless. I needed to stay sharp and out of their reach. Hours passed, and the sun began to rise as I neared Dave's place. It was a small, secluded cabin in the woods, a perfect hideout. I pulled into the driveway, and Dave was already outside, waiting for me. "Henry, it's good to see you, but you look like hell," he said, giving me a bear hug. "Thanks, Dave. It's been a rough few days," I admitted, feeling the weight of the past events pressing down on me. "Come on in. We'll get you settled, and then you can tell me everything," he said, leading me inside. The cabin was cozy and familiar, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd just escaped. Dave handed me a beer, and we sat down. I recounted the entire ordeal, from Luna's betrayal to the threats and the violent assault. Dave listened intently, his expression growing darker with each detail. "Man, that's some serious shit," he finally said, shaking his head. "You're right to get out of town for a while. Those people sound dangerous." "Yeah, they are. I don't know what to do next, but I needed to get away and clear my head," I said. "Well, you're safe here. Stay as long as you need. We'll figure this out together," Dave assured me. I nodded, grateful for his support. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. With Dave's help, maybe I could find a way to get my life back on track and bring those responsible to justice. But for now, all I needed was some rest and a chance to regroup. The fight wasn't over yet, but I knew I had an ally in Dave, and that made all the difference, and headed to the living room where we all settled in. The room was warm and inviting, with a large stone fireplace that added a rustic charm to the log house. Dave and Beverly sat across from me, both looking concerned. "All right, spill it, Henry," Dave said, taking a swig of his beer. I took a deep breath and started from the beginning. I told them about Luna, the changes in her behavior, and how I started suspecting something was wrong. I explained the night I followed her to the bar, the confrontation with Jake and Marie, and how things escalated from there. Dave listened intently, occasionally nodding, while Beverly's eyes widened in disbelief. When I got to the part about being drugged, tied up, and forced to watch, Beverly gasped. "Those bastards," she muttered. "I can't believe Luna went along with that." I continued, describing the threats and how I ended up calling the police. By the time I finished, Dave was shaking his head. "Henry, that's some heavy shit," he said. "I'm glad you got out of there." "Yeah," Beverly agreed. "What are you going to do now?" Well, I handed over all the evidence to the AICHI district attorney. She seemed pretty determined to help, but I'm not taking any chances. I need to lay low for a while, and that's why I'm here. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," Dave said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "But we need to make sure you're safe. Those people sound dangerous." "I know," I replied. "That's why I brought some of my welding gear. I have an idea to reinforce the doors and windows here, just in case." Dave nodded. "Good thinking. We can start on that tomorrow. For now, get some rest. You've been through hell." Beverly stood up and stretched. "I'll show you to the guest room. It's not fancy, but it's comfortable." I followed her upstairs, feeling the exhaustion setting in. The guest room was small but cozy, with a comfortable-looking bed and a window overlooking the forest. "Thanks, Bev," I said as she handed me a fresh towel and some extra blankets. "No problem, Henry," she replied, giving me a warm smile. "Just take it easy, okay? We'll figure this out together." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. It was good to know I wasn't alone in this. As I lay down on the bed, I couldn't help but think about how much had changed in such a short time. My life had been turned upside down, but at least I had friends who cared. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. I got dressed and headed downstairs to find Dave and Beverly in the kitchen preparing breakfast. "Morning, sleepyhead," Dave said with a grin. "Grab a plate. We've got work to do today." I smiled, feeling more at ease than I had in days. "Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it." After breakfast, we spent the day reinforcing the house. We welded metal bars to the doors and windows, installed extra locks, and set up a security system. By the time we finished, the house felt like a fortress. "That should do it," Dave said, wiping the sweat from his brow. I doubt anyone's getting in here without a fight. Thanks, Dave, I said, feeling a sense of accomplishment. I feel a lot safer now. Anytime, buddy, he replied. Now, let's grab a beer and relax. You've earned it. As we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, I realized that despite everything, I still had hope. With friends like Dave and Beverly by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. I walked back into the front room and handed one beer to Dave before turning to Beverly. Are you sure you're old enough to drink? I asked sarcastically. She laughed, raising her middle finger and grabbing a beer from my hand. Spill it, Henry. What's been going on? She urged, her curiosity evident. It's quite a story, I remarked. Well, we're all adults here, and we're practically family. So get on with it, Dave encouraged. I took a deep breath. All right, I began, recounting the entire ordeal with Luna, Marie, and Jake. I showed them the video of my brief meeting with Holly. When I finished, they were both silent, processing the information. Dave took a sip of his beer. Damn, do you think they know where you are? He asked. I don't think so. I didn't see any cars following me. Anyway, we're up here on this hill and can see anyone approaching. Plus, I still have the pistols I bought from your dad after Mikey's accident. Do you remember how to shoot? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, but I haven't touched a gun since then. That's okay. We'll go out back tomorrow and get you reacquainted with them. Bev's become a pretty good shot too, Dave said, glancing at Beverly, who smiled proudly. Does your dad know you're up here? Beverly asked. I shook my head. No, I haven't told anyone where I am, but I need to inform the AICHI DA. I didn't think of coming here until I was already on the road. Okay, I'll call your folks first thing in the morning. In the meantime, turn off your phone and take out the battery, just in case there's a tracker on it, Dave suggested. Good idea, I agreed, turning off my phone and removing the battery. So, Luna and her buddies are appearing before the judge on Monday? Beverly asked. Yes, the arraignment is scheduled for Monday. The DA is hoping the judge holds them without bail, but after hearing what Holly said, I'm not so sure that'll happen. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. I've got a job starting a week from Monday and will be gone for a week, but if you need to stay, that's fine, Dave assured me. I appreciate that, Dave. I hope this gets resolved soon. As I said, you're welcome here. Just take it easy, Dave repeated. Thanks. I appreciate it, I said. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Dave smiled at Beverly. I'm sure Bev has a few ideas, but you're our guest, so just relax and enjoy the country air. Well, gentlemen, this has been fun, but I have to get up and make breakfast in a few hours, Beverly announced, Henrying up. I hope you enjoy omelets and hash browns, because that's what I'm making. Sounds perfect, I said, smiling at her. She waved and headed upstairs, leaving Dave and me to finish our beers. We stepped outside to smoke a cigarette and talk. What's the deal with Bev anyway? I asked. I figured she'd be married with kids by now. She never met anyone she really cared about. Dated a few guys, but none of them measured up, Dave said. Measured up to what? I asked, genuinely curious. Dave gave me a serious look. To you, numb nuts. She's had a crush on you forever. No way, I said, surprised. Absolutely. The only reason she never told you was because of Luna. She didn't want to be the cause of your breakup, Dave explained. Are you serious? I asked. Like a heart attack. Why do you think she still likes you? Dave replied. I've heard her call out your name more than once in her sleep, he added with a grin. That's more information than I needed, I said, shaking my head. Look, I'd be fine with you two getting together. Just don't break her heart. I love my sister, and I think you do too. But if you're going to get back with Luna, don't get Bev's hopes up, Dave warned. I'm done with Luna, I said firmly. Good to hear. Well, I should get to bed. See you in the morning, Dave said, grinding out his cigarette. I finished mine and followed him back inside, feeling a strange mix of relief and apprehension. I fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. I awoke later when Beverly opened the door and called out for me to get up, shine, and wipe the sleep from my eyes. It was 8:30. I went through my morning routine in the bathroom, took a quick shower, dressed, and headed downstairs. As I dressed, I looked at the ring on my finger, removed it, and tossed it on the dresser. When I came downstairs, I saw Beverly in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. She wore a short t-shirt and cut-off shorts. Her long hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and her blonde bangs fell across her brow. She was a vision of loveliness, and I wondered why I hadn't seen it before. "That smells nice," I said. She smiled. "I'm delighted you think so, cowboy. If you want some coffee, it's already made. You still like butter pecan creamer?" "Yes, I do. Did you get any?" "Yeah, it's in the refrigerator. Help yourself. Just leave some for Dave and me." I made a cup of coffee and added the creamer. Southern butter pecan was one of my favorite flavors. Dave had gotten hooked on it after my father brought some to a job site. She smiled. "Go ahead and have a seat. I'll have breakfast ready in a minute." I sat at the table where Dave was already reading the Sunday paper. "Morning," I said. He looked over the paper. "Morning," he responded. "Anything interesting in the news?" I asked. "Yeah, there's a story about a fancy lawyer being arrested for a variety of offenses." "Take a look," he said, handing me the article. The story didn't mention names and provided few specifics. It was mostly boilerplate news that left out the full story. I grunted and handed the paper back. Beverly finished cooking breakfast and brought it to the table on a trolley. "This is very good," I said, taking a large bite. "Thank you, sir. I'm pleased you agree," she replied with a smile. We finished breakfast, and Dave stood up after cleaning his plate. "I need to go into town and get some items. I'll be gone for at least a couple of hours. If you need to contact the DA, you can use the home phone." "Now, thank you," I replied. Beverly handed him a list of what she needed, and he tucked it into his pocket. He grabbed his keys and walked out. I looked at Beverly. "Do you need some help with the dishes?" I asked. "I don't necessarily need it, but it would be greatly appreciated." "Thanks for asking," she said. I got up and helped her clear the table. She tossed me a towel and started washing the dishes. "Everything's already in the sink. I noticed you're not wearing your ring. Are you really going to divorce her?" "Yeah," I said. "I won't tolerate infidelity, and I meant it." "Good," she replied with a small smile. "I'm glad to see you still have some balls. How are things going with you otherwise?" She shrugged. "Okay, I guess. Is there someone special in your life now?" I inquired. "There was once, but he was already taken. Besides, I wouldn't have been able to pursue a relationship anyway. I've been too busy taking care of my folks." "Yeah, I heard. That must have been tough after your dad passed away." "It was, but Mom needed my help," she said. "To supplement my income, I worked as a waiter. She only had Dad's 401k and some Social Security. I worked till she was too unwell to do anything. Then I stayed at home and cared for her full time." "Sorry to hear that." "Don't be. I have no regrets about remaining home with her. I only hope that when I'm her age, someone will be around to help me." "So what occurred?" I inquired. "There was little left after Mom's death. We had to sell the house and a lot of her belongings. We were able to pay off all of her final costs with the remainder of Dad's pension and 401k. There was a little left over, and Dave let me have it because I took care of her. He promised Mom that he'd let me stay with him, and this is where I have been ever since. Dave offered to pay for my college education, but I refused him." "Why?" I inquired. "I don't want to be obligated to anyone. I want to make it on my own if I am able to. So I stay here and work at the local McDonald's. I earn enough to cover my expenses and am taking a couple of business classes at night." "Good on you," I said. "Yeah, Dave has this notion to start his own fabrication firm, and he discussed having me do the accounting and such," she added. "He's still talking about it." "Yeah. He does a lot of one-of-a-kind stuff for people around here. Custom barbecue grills, trailers, and other such items. It pays rather well. His dream is to stay at home and operate from his backyard shop. Perhaps he'll show it to you while you're here." "That would be nice." We were silent for a moment, and I found myself admiring her for the first time. I noticed how stunning she truly was, and not just from the exterior. She gave me a glance before speaking. "What exactly are you looking at?" she inquired. "I believe I'm looking at the most stunning woman I've ever met." I told her I believed I saw its form in her eye. "Stop teasing me," she replied gently, looking down. "I am not. I cannot help but admire you. You have put your own life on hold for your parents. You declined Dave's offer to send you through college, and you're making your own way through school. I'm sorry I didn't notice it sooner." "Well, Luna blinded you, so I can't really hold it against you," she explained. "Yeah, I suppose you're correct." After washing all of the dishes, she drained the water in the sink, dried her hands, and turned to me. She was using you, Beth explained. I guess you're correct. Of course I am right. I saw it 3 years ago. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. You would not have believed me. I recognized she was probably correct. In your opinion, she could not possibly do anything wrong. She had you wrapped around her little finger, and you would have done anything for her. All I wanted was to keep her happy. And look where that led you. She received her degree, a new automobile, and a plethora of jewels, trinkets, and outfits, all on your dime. Then, when she no longer needed you, she traded you in for a new model. I'm delighted she is in jail, because if she were here right now, I'd tear her a new hole. I think you would. I only want to know one thing. She spoke, her hands on her hips. What is that? I asked. Will you fall for her tears and take her back if she gets out? Beverly's eyes bore into mine, waiting for my answer. I shook my head firmly. No, I've learned my lesson. I'm done with her. She betrayed me in the worst possible way. There's no coming back from that. Good, she said with a sigh of relief. You deserve so much better, Henry. Thanks, Beverly. I appreciate that. And I mean it too. I want to move forward and leave all this behind. She smiled warmly at me. Then let's do that. Let's focus on the future and leave the past where it belongs. We stood there in the kitchen, a newfound underhanding between us. The past was painful, but the future held promise, and I was ready to embrace it with Beverly by my side. Linda, this is Henry Shipman. I just wanted to let you know where I am. Henry, thank goodness you called. I was starting to get worried. I see you're calling long to Henry's. Where are you now? I'm staying with a longtime family friend. I turned off my cell phone just to be safe. Okay, good thinking. I'll keep you updated as much as possible. I've already heard from the feds. They're interested in your case. You might need to be ready for their questions. That's fine, Linda. I'll cooperate fully. Great. Stay safe, Henry, and keep in touch. I will. Thanks, Linda. After I hung up the phone, Beverly was in the kitchen preparing the venison. She glanced over at me and smiled. All set? Yeah, all set. The feds are getting involved now. Linda thinks they might contact me soon. Well, you're safe here. No one will find you unless you want them to. I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Beverly's confidence was reassuring. I think I'll take you up on that offer to stay here for a bit. She beamed. Good. Now how about we finish preparing this venison? We spent the afternoon together, cooking and talking. Beverly's company was comforting, and I found myself opening up to her more than I had to anyone in a long time. As the sun began to set, Dave returned with the groceries. He took one look at the spread Beverly and I had prepared and whistled. Looks like you two have been busy, he said with a grin. We have, Beverly replied, handing him a beer. Ready to get the grill going? You bet, he said, taking a long sip from the bottle. We headed out to the backyard, where Dave had a custom-built barbecue grill that looked more like a medieval forge. It was a thing of beauty, all polished metal and sturdy craftsmanship. We fired it up, and soon the smell of grilling venison filled the air. Beverly stood next to me, her arm brushing against mine as we watched the meat sizzle. This is nice, she said softly. It is, I agreed, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the grill. I've missed this, just spending time with good people. You always have a place here, Dave said, clapping me on the shoulder. We're family. That night, after a feast of perfectly grilled venison and more than a few beers, Beverly and I found ourselves alone again. She led me to her room, where the bed was indeed much larger and more inviting than the one in the guest room. As we lay together, her head resting on my chest, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Beverly, I meant what I said earlier. I love you, and I want to be with you. She looked up at me, her eyes shining. I love you too, Henry. I've always loved you. We fell asleep in each other's arms, the past fading away as we built something new and beautiful together. The next morning, I woke up early and went downstairs to make coffee. As I was pouring a cup, Dave walked in, rubbing his eyes. Morning, he said with a yawn. Morning, I replied, handing him a mug. He took a sip and nodded appreciatively. Good stuff. So what's the plan for today? Not sure yet, I admitted, but I need to figure out my next steps. Well, whatever you decide, you've got our support, Dave said firmly. And if those bastards come looking for you, they'll have to get through us first. I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. Thanks, Dave. That means a lot. Just then, Beverly appeared in the doorway, her hair tousled and a sleepy smile on her face. "Good morning, you two." "Morning, Beverly," Dave said with a grin. "Ready for another day?" "Absolutely," she replied, coming over to kiss me on the cheek. "Let's make it a good one." As we sat together, sipping our coffee and planning the day ahead, I realized that despite everything that had happened, I was exactly where I needed to be. With Beverly and Dave by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. "It appears that they are looking into the firm your wife works for. By the way, I took the liberty of speaking with an old buddy of mine who happens to be the best darn divorce lawyer in town. I hope you don't mind." "No, I don't mind at all. I appreciate it." "Good. She expects to hear from you tomorrow. I told her a little about your circumhenrycies. She is more than capable of dealing with this situation." "Thanks. I will definitely get in touch with her." Linda gave me the information I needed and promised to let me know how the arraignment went before we concluded the call. By that point, Dave had returned, so I walked out to help him carry his belongings in. "By the way," he said as we finished, "I called your parents. They were quite concerned about you. I informed them that you were staying with us for a while. Thanks for doing that." That night, we barbecued the meat and ate dinner on the balcony. After supper, we all joined in to clean up. Dave and I got a beer and went outside for a smoke while Beverly finished up. "Bev tells me you'll be sleeping in her room," Dave stated. "Is this going to be a permanent situation?" I was a little uneasy discussing this with him. She was his sister, after all. "I believe so. What do you think?" "Yes, it is. I just need to finalize my divorce." "Do you love her?" he asked. "Yes, good. It's about time you got your head out of your buttocks," he said with a smile. "Look, she's a big girl who can make her own decisions. She can certainly take care of herself. I just don't want her to be hurt, that's all."